All right. This is week 2 of English 1302. I'm Professor Wilkes, and I wanted to go over a few things that I think might make your week a little easier. I'm going to share my screen and go into our classroom. Don't mind the cat. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to share is that I did upload an announcement today. It's a reminder about academic integrity. There were 3 people that chose to use AI to create their discussion board post. And no, I have not turned anyone in for academic dishonesty because I wanted to have this reminder with you today before anything moves on to that level. So just remember that the first offense is a 0 for the assignment. The second offense is a 0 for the entire course if it has been determined that you have used generative AI to create an assignment. And so I wanted to clarify, this is something some students get confused about. We are allowed to use Grammarly. Grammarly is an editing and revising software. So we have to put some boundaries on that. And so what this means is, yes, you may use Grammarly or other similar tools to edit, and those would be minor edits. You can use them to check your spelling. You can use them to add a comma. You can use them for minor grammatical errors. Where the problem happens is when Grammarly starts making suggestions, if you just hit yes, 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 it's going to become generative. It's going to start small with commas and spell checking, and then it's going to start suggesting word changes, synonyms. Then it's going to start changing sentences entirely. Then it's going to start changing paragraphs entirely. And you can see how that gets completely carried away. And that will red flag your assignment, and that will cause you to receive a 0 and potentially additional penalties. So if you're using Grammarly, which I hope you are, I hope you're using some type of editing and revising software, make sure that you stick to using it for just the basic edits and that you're not allowing it to rewrite your assignment, because that's where it becomes problematic. So I'll let you read through this, and you may also want to reference the syllabus to see what the language in there looks like about generative AI, about Grammarly, and about academic dishonesty and what those penalties look like. So I'm going to stop share and reshare because I'm going to go to a thesis document. Stop share, reshare, thesis document. Okay, so for your first discussion board, your week 1 discussion board, you wrote a thesis statement. And so I just wanted to go over that with you. There's a couple of videos in week 1 at the very bottom. There are some video lessons. There's a couple of videos you may want to look at. So this was our prompt. Of the collegiate habits for success we've read about, which 3 do you think will be most important for you to develop during your college experience? Explain why these habits are significant to your growth and how you plan to cultivate them. So when you have a prompt, first thing you have to do is you need to answer that prompt directly. So here's a direct answer. The most important academics for collegiate students to develop are 1, strong time management, 2, active reading, and 3, consistent organization. So that answers the prompt. What are the 3 most important habits to develop? But after you have answered this would be a basic thesis statement. Then you have to ask yourself, so what? So what? So why is that important? And then you're going to add, because these skills create a foundation for independent learning and long-term success. Maybe that's not your so what, that was my so what. Your so what will be important to you and the direction you're taking your essay in. So you're going to combine your direct answer to the prompt with your so what and that gives you your complete thesis statement. So this is what it might look like. The most important academic habits for college students to develop are strong time management, active reading, and consistent organization. So what? Because these skills create a foundation for independent learning and lifelong learning, long-term success, independent learning and long-term success. And so the reason we include so many pieces into our thesis statement is because our thesis statement needs to be a roadmap. Someone should be able to look at your thesis statement and know exactly what each of your following paragraphs is going to be about. Paragraph 1 is going to be about the most important academic habits for college students to develop. That's your intro. Paragraph 2 is going to be about strong time management. Paragraph 3 is going to be about active reading. Paragraph 4 is going to be about consistent organization. Paragraph 5, you're going to meld it all together and give your readers a takeaway. And that takeaway is it creates a foundation for independent learning and long-term success. So it tells your reader exactly what they should expect in your next 5 paragraphs. So yes, your thesis statement will be long. Remember, it can only be 1 sentence in length, 1, not 2. Sometimes a video will tell you it can be 2 sentences or 3 sentences, and that is true, but only if you are writing a 20, 30, 40 page long essay. With a 3 or 4 or 5 page long essay, your thesis statement needs to be exactly 1 sentence long, and it must be the very last sentence in your introduction. So when I go into grade and I'm looking to give you those 10 or 20 thesis statement points, I am only reading the last sentence in paragraph 1. My assumption is that is your thesis statement. So if you put your thesis statement someplace else, you will not get your points for a correct thesis statement because I won't be reading it. I will be reading the last sentence in paragraph 1. And so to be repetitive, there are 2 videos at the bottom of week 1. It says video lessons, I believe, and you might like to review those. One is thesis statements and topic sentences, and the other one is just topic sentences. So those should be helpful for you. All right. I am going to stop share and reshare. I have 2 short PowerPoint lectures. I am not going to read every slide to you. I know that you can read the PowerPoints. I'm going to hit a couple of highlights. So we're going to stop share. We're going to reshare, and we're going to go to PowerPoint 1. Okay. Building strong paragraphs. What is a paragraph? When to start a new paragraph. So most people know when to start a new paragraph, but I want to add this. If a paragraph is too long or too complex, you should start a new paragraph. Everything that we do as writers is to make reading easier for our reader. When we write, we are teaching others something. And so if you write a paragraph that is 15 sentences long, no one is going to want to read that paragraph. I'm sure you've opened books, etc., and seen a massive paragraph. And I don't know about you, but I don't read massive paragraphs. I might read the first sentence or 2, and then I'm skipping on. So one big reason we start a new paragraph is to give our readers a little break. Give them 6 sentences, 8 sentences, 10 sentences, and give them a break. Start a new paragraph. Beyond, of course, the things that we know, like when we change ideas or we change focus, of course, we start a new paragraph at that time as well. Okay, so this is how I like for paragraphs to be laid out. Over here on the left, you can see there's numbers 1 through 8. And so, yes, those do represent essentially the 8 sentences in a paragraph. A paragraph can be 6 or 7 sentences. You can combine a couple of these. A paragraph can be 9 or 10 sentences. You can elaborate on a couple. But just for a generic place to start, here are 8 sentences. You're going to provide your topic sentence. which states the main idea clearly. And that main idea is going to be a piece of your thesis statement. Remember, our thesis statement had 3 different academic habits. So your topic sentence is going to most likely include one of those academic habits. Sentence 2 in each of your body paragraphs is going to clarify or define a key term. So again, everything that you write about is for the purpose of teaching your reader something. And so you want to make sure they understand what you're talking about. So if your topic sentence number 1 is about collaboration, if you say collaboration is an important habit for college students to have success, then maybe in sentence 2, you define collaboration. Maybe your readers don't know what collaboration is. Collaboration is the act of working with peers for a greater good, whatever your definition of collaboration is. And it doesn't have to be the Webster Dictionary definition. It can be your definition as you are using it in your essay. And for the most part, then you're going to have 2 pieces of evidence, and then you're going to have to explain those 2 pieces of evidence. So sentence 3 is you introduce and you provide evidence. That's going to be a quote, an example, a statistic, etc. And so in this essay, sentence 3 for you will be a quote from the library. Sentence 4 is you restating that quote in your own words and connecting that quote to your thesis statement. And then again, you're going to provide more evidence. And for this essay, your second piece of evidence is going to be an example from your life. An example from your life. And you're going to discuss that example from your life. And then you're going to give some sort of commentary that ties your quote and your example back to your topic sentence. And then you are going to conclude that paragraph and give a preview of what your next paragraph is. So if this paragraph was about collaboration, you might say collaboration is the most important habit students can cultivate, and a close second would be the act of responsibility. And so then your reader knows, because everything we do is to make things easier for our reader, your reader knows the next paragraph is going to be about responsibility. And so this paragraph structure is really only intended for your body paragraphs. Your intro and your conclusion are generally shorter than this, not significantly shorter. You certainly want more than 3 sentences, but maybe 5 would be suitable, maybe 6 would be suitable. So this is paragraph structure for your body paragraphs. All right, moving on to something called a sandwich quote. This is extremely important, and I'm going to beat this dead horse the entire semester. You must learn to sandwich your quotes, and you must sandwich your quotes all through college. So let's look at that. When I say sandwich your quote, the top bun of your sandwich is when you introduce the source. So if you have a library source and you're providing a quote, you introduce that library source. According to Dr. Smith, PhD of agriculture at the University of Harvard, whomever this person is, you provide that context. The filling of the sandwich is the quote itself. You then provide the quote. And then the bottom bun is when you analyze that quote. So you have put a lot of time and effort into researching at the library. You've put a lot of time and effort into your outline, your rough draft, your final copy. So you know what that quote means. You know what that quote means. You have become an expert on that person and that topic. But your reader, again, which is what we're doing, is making things easier for our reader, have not put in all of that research. So after you provide that fancy quote that uses a lot of academic jargon, you're going to analyze that quote by stating it in your own words. You're still going to stay academic, but you're going to make it more relatable to your readers. And part of that bottom bun is also then connecting that quote back to your thesis statement. So here is an image. This image is from superela.com. You can go to that website if you want more information on it. So it talks about how you introduce your quote. That's your top read. Mark Twain claims, according to Mark Twain, on page 32, Twain states. Those are different ways that you can introduce a quote. Then you provide the quote, and then you tell what that quote means. And I'm going to take this just a step further. So you see down here it says, according to Plato, that's your introduction, that is your top read. And then there's a quote that's provided. Wise men talk because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something. And then there's 2 sentences of commentary afterwards. Plato points out that people should always think before they speak. This is important to remember when communicating. And so the author of this quote then goes on to connect it back to their thesis statement. So the step further that I'm going to take it is, this says, according to Plato. Again, you're going to need to break that down for your readers. Not everybody knows who Plato is, and so why do they care what Plato has to say? So you're going to need to provide a little more information and say, according to Plato, comma, an ancient Greek philosopher who created the first university, comma, wise men speak. And so by giving that context as to who Plato is, it makes your reader realize that you have done your research. It makes them understand that Plato is somebody worth listening to, and it piques their interest. So when you drop quotes into essays or assignments throughout the balance of this semester, I'm going to expect that you introduce it and you provide that credibility for whomever it is that you're quoting. And then at the end of your quote, I'm going to expect that you add that bottom bread, which is you regurgitating that information in plain language, in your own words, and connecting it back to your thesis statement. And something to think about when you decide who it is that you're going to quote, make sure that person is an expert on the topic. You don't want to quote a farmer on immunizations, unless it's cattle immunizations, right? You don't want to quote me on baking cookies because my degrees are in education and literature and writing. So I am not an expert on baking cookies. So you need to make sure that whomever it is that you are quoting is an expert on the topic you're talking about. That's how we build credibility. All right, one more short lecture. There's one more slide at the bottom that you can read at your leisure. I'm going to stop share and reshare to that second lecture. All right, this is just more about essay flow. We're going to start up here at the top. This week we're focusing on how how to organize your essay from start to finish. The process is called rhetorical arrangement. So you're first going to introduce your essay. The way you do that is in paragraph 1. You're going to hook your reader. You may want to go to YouTube and watch a few short videos, 3-minute videos, 5-minute videos about how to write a great hook. Then you're going to provide context for your essay. You're going to briefly explain what your essay is going to be about. And you're going to end with your thesis statement. We already talked about thesis statements. I will take that document that I showed you that was color-coded and drop it into an announcement as soon as I upload this video. So these are the 3 topics that you're going to cover in your introduction, but it's going to be more than 3 sentences. Maybe your hook is 2 sentences long. Maybe it's 1. Maybe your context is 2 sentences long. Maybe it's 3 sentences long. But remember, you always end with that thesis claim, and it can only be 1 sentence in length. So then you're going to discuss your claims and your supporting claims. Your supporting claims, your main claim, first of all, is your thesis statement. Your supporting claims are your topic sentences. So each body paragraph will have a supporting claim. That is where you list responsibility is one of the academic habits. Collaboration is one of the habits. Open-mindedness is one of the habits, or whichever 3 habits you laid out in your thesis statements. Those are going to be your supporting claims. Then they're going to be the first sentence in each of your body paragraphs. For each claim, you're going to need examples, research, and quotes. You're going to need to use the sandwich method. For each piece of evidence, you're going to need to analyze that evidence. And like I said, I am not reading all of these slides to you. You're welcome to come back and read them at your leisure when it's a better time. And then you're also providing the personal examples. So you give your claim, you give your evidence, you give your analysis, you give your personal example, and you do that in each of your body paragraphs. And then your last paragraph is your conclusion, where you reflect on the bigger picture, which is the second half of our thesis statement. Remember, we listed out our 3 habits, and then we did the so what. And so the so what is your bigger picture, your reflection, and your forward-looking thought. So that is what it looks like. And that is how we wrap it up. So I just went over everything very quickly. I think I hit on everything that I wanted to cover. And I will end this video now. If you have any questions for me, you are welcome to send me an email. Let me see what is due this week since I have you for a moment. Stop share, reshare, back to our classroom. And if we go into content and we go into week 2, so week 2 looks almost identical to week 1. You're going to do your OWL ratings. These are the 2 mini lectures I just went over with you. You're going to do a 10-question quiz over your OWL readings. This is a rough draft workshop. Okay, so your discussion board 1, you dropped a thesis statement in there. Now your discussion 2, you're going to drop a rough draft in, and then you're going to provide peer feedback to 2 of your peers. I did lay out the questions. You're going to write 1 sentence about the thesis they've written, 1 sentence about their organization, 1 sentence about their paragraph development, 1 sentence about their voice, style, and MLA, and then 1 sentence that is an overall impression. So you're going to see 3 or 4 questions under each of these. You do not have to answer all of those questions. Those are just guiding questions. You're going to answer the question or a couple of questions that you think will be most helpful for the person you're reviewing. Not what's going to be easiest for you, but what's going to be most helpful for the person that you're reviewing. And always make sure that you are responding to people that don't have comments before you respond to somebody that does have a comment. I don't want to see somebody that's got 5 replies and someone that has no replies, because that simply isn't a fair way to operate discussion boards. And so with that being said, your first post is due Wednesday. I will go in Wednesday morning, and I will also go in Friday morning, and I will reply to each and every one of you and provide you with my feedback on how to improve your rough drafts, because Essay 1 is due on Sunday. All right, that is it for tonight. Like I said, if you have any questions, email me and I will respond as quickly as possible. Have a good week. Stop sharing and stop the recording. Good night.